Well, I guess we'll call the meeting to order if everyone that's on is on, and we have a roll call.
Commissioner Ryan? Commissioner Campbell?
Commissioner Ryan.
Everyone that's on is on, and we have a roll call.
Commissioner Ryan?
Present. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Campbell? Commissioner Blower?
Blower here.
Oh, sorry. Commissioner Jewell?
Commissioner Jewell here.
Commissioner Hawkins? Repeating. Commissioner Sorensen?
Here. Who's
Commissioner Sorensen?
I'm here.
Commissioner Jordan?
Here.
Commissioner Wesley?
Here,
Okay.
Oh,
we have,
somewhere it's repeating.
Somebody have it?
Okay.
is that correct?
Oh. Okay, so we need speakers to be a little lower because it's echoing. Okay. Is that good?
Suzanne, are you there?
I
This
am.
is Commissioner Chairman Wesley. Okay.
I'm here.
All right. We have a quorum, and with that, I'm going to turn the chair over to you for the election of officers.
Okay, so tonight we are electing a chair and a vice chair and a secretary.
Correct.
So are there any nominations for chair from the commission?
This is Commissioner Jewell, and I'd like to nominate Bob Wesley as the chair to maintain our consistency.
Okay, we have a motion for chair for Bob Wesley. Is there a second?
Commissioner Blower, second.
Well, we have to close the nominations, and at that point, I will accept, of course, at the close of nominations.
I think we have to ask if there's any other nominations.
Right, and then somebody has to make a motion to close the nominations.
Exactly. Are there any other nominations for chair? Are there any other nominations for chair? Are there any other nominations for chair? Okay.
This is Commissioner.
I'm
This
sorry.
is Commissioner. Yeah, this is Commissioner Jewell. I'll make a motion to close nominations for chair.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Commissioner Jordan, I would support.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for, I'm sorry, this was to
No.
close it. I apologize. Okay, so the nominations are closed, and I'm turning the meeting back over to you, Chairman Wesley, for the rest of the nominate. No?
This is
No.
Commissioner Jewell. For the sake of the record, you have to call for the election of the chair.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
Call for the vote.
I'm sorry. Okay, I'm calling for the vote for the role of chairman to be filled by Commissioner Wesley for the Planning Commission. Roll call. Commissioner Blauer,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
He's doing it.
Yes.
Commissioner Campbell. We cannot hear her still. Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Ryan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jewell,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wesley.
Yes.
Okay, the vote was 6 yes for Bob Wesley for chair.
And with
Okay,
that,
at this
I
time, I'm
thank
turning the
everyone
meeting
again.
back over to Commissioner Wesley for chair, as chair.
you're trying to get out of this. All right. Next nomination is for vice chair. The floor is open for vice chair.
This is Commissioner Jewell. I'd like to make a nomination of Elizabeth Jordan for vice chair, again, to maintain our consistency at this time.
I support it. Commissioner Ryan?
Is there any other nominations for vice chair? Any other nominations for vice chair? Nomination for vice chair is now closed. Commissioner Jordan, are you willing to take vice chair?
Yes. With my gratitude.
Very good. I'm glad you said that in a hurry. My heart began to flutter. Slow.
Get stuck with one of us.
Roll for vice chair.
Are you doing roll, Bill, or do you want me to?
Commissioner Ryan,
Yes.
Commissioner Campbell,
Yes.
Good to hear you.
Flower,
Yes.
Commissioner Jewell,
Yes.
Commissioner Hawkins, Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Wesley.
Yes. Welcome aboard again,
Thank you.
Commissioner Jordan. The next
Yeah.
office will be for secretary. Nominations for secretary.
Again, this is Commissioner Jewell, and I'd like to place Carol Ann Blauer in nomination for secretary, again, to maintain the consistency of our leadership at this time.
Commissioner Campbell, I agree. Second.
Well, the nominations, any other nominations for secretary? Any other nominations for secretary? Nomination for secretary is now closed. Roll for the vote on secretary.
Commissioner Ryan,
Yes.
Commissioner Campbell,
Yes.
Commissioner Blauer,
Yes.
Commissioner Jewell,
Yes.
Commissioner Hawkins, Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner
You have
Wesley.
one more? Yes. Here again, Carolyn, welcome aboard for consistency carrying out our duties of the Planning Commission.
Thank you
Also,
so-
we have to elect a representative for the ZBA. We can do that at this time also. Nominations are now open for ZBA, the representative from the Planning Commission for the ZBA, Zoning Board of Appeals.
This is Commissioner Jewell. And again, I'd like to nominate Carol Ann Blower, who has fulfilled that task over the past several years as a representative to the ZBA.
Is there any other nominations for representative for ZBA?
We need a second on my motion, Mr. Chair.
I support that.
It's moved and properly supported, but okay.
That was Commissioner Sorensen that supported that, correct?
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. Any other nominations for ZBA? Carol Ann, you willing to accept that?
Yes, sir.
We love you, girl.
Thank you.
Taking one for the team.
Go ahead. Vote for the representative for ZBA.
Commissioner Ryan,
Yes.
Commissioner Campbell,
Yes.
Commissioner Blower,
Yes.
Commissioner Jewell,
Yes.
Commissioner Hawkins, Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Wesley.
Yes. That concludes our election of officers. Next item on our agenda are there any additions or changes to the agenda?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
this is Commissioner Campbell. Could you please make the corrections that I also voted for you for chair? Because I think they only said 6 people.
Okay, we'll do that. Thank you very much. We'll do that.
Thank you.
Are there any additions or changes to the agenda?
Mr. Chair,
This is
Commissioner Blower, under report,
Yeah.
I would like to add a review of the ZBA from 421, including PC 2358.
From 421?
From 421, the last
Okay.
ZBA meeting.
All right.
This is Commissioner Jewell.
Okay.
I'd like to add under case review, status of SPR 20-930 regarding the townhouses landscape plan submission that was to be reviewed it was an administrative review with a review by the chair, which was from our March meeting.
Okay. All right, any other changes to the agenda? Hearing
Excuse me,
none.
Commissioner
Yes.
Sorensen, I did not get in on that roll call supporting Ms. Blower for the ZBA liaison.
Oh. Okay,
Thank you.
miss you, okay. Support. Are there any other changes to the agenda? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion to accept the agenda with the additions.
So moved.
So moved.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Appears unanimous. Approval for the minutes of April 15. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes of April 15?
This is Commissioner Jewell,
Yes, sir.
and I'd like to make reference to page 5 at the top of the page. It presently reads, Commissioner Jewell asked if Ruth Mott could prove staff could approve staff with a copy. That should read Commissioner Jewell with 2 L's asked if Ruth Mott Foundation could provide staff with a copy of the purchase agreement.
Okay.
Chairman Wesley, this is Commissioner Jordan.
Yes,
On that same page, page number 5, for both of the motions to approve PC 20-366, and I just wanted to note that for both of those motions, I abstained because I have a conflict of interest.
okay.
And actually, on that same page, I'm noting that I think there's an error in the second number of the public hearing, that the first one is PC 20-366. The second one should be PC 20-367.
Seven. That's the Ruth Mott. Okay. Okay. All right, got those. Any other changes?
Commissioner Wesley, I have one other correction. It's on the bottom of the first page.
Bottom of the first page? Okay.
And maybe everybody's got a little bit of TP on the brain, but currently it says Sharman Wesley instead of Chairman.
Oh,
Oh, okay, Chairman, I got it.
So do we add a G at the end of that? So it's
Charming.
All right, Commissioner Jewell. Is there any other additions or corrections?
Mr. Chair,
Yes?
this is Commissioner Campbell. This is 7 pages of minutes, and it should say at the bottom, it stops at 5. It says page 5 of 4, and it should be 5 of 7, 5 to 7.
Yeah.
Okay, 5 of 4.
It should be 7,
6,
7 pages.
7, yeah. And it should be 6 of 7
Yeah, 6 of, from then on, yes.
and 7 of
7 and then 7. Mhm.
Yeah, okay. Well, actually, we can start at page 1. and go
One,
1 of
yeah.
7.
Well, yeah, because the 4 is there.
Yep. Are there any other additions or corrections? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion to accept the minutes of April 15, 2020.
So moved.
Support.
Been moved and properly supported that the minutes of April 15, 2020 be approved. Roll.
Mr. Chair, should that be with corrections?
With corrections, okay.
Commissioner Ryan,
Yes.
Commissioner Campbell,
Yes.
Commissioner Blauer,
Yes.
Commissioner Jewell,
yes with corrections.
Commissioner Hawkins, Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Wesley.
Yes. Next item on our agenda is a public forum.
Commissioners, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
not getting in on the roll. I'm not getting in on the roll call, Commissioner Sorensen.
Commissioner Sorensen, sorry.
Sorry. Okay. Okay, Bill.
Sorry,
That's fine.
apologize.
Okay. All right. Bill, you got your checklist set together now? Okay. Next item on our agenda is a public forum. The public is invited to take part on anything appearing on this agenda if you had an opportunity to look online and get our agenda off of it. If there's anyone on the public forum that's there wishing to be heard on the public hearing, the applicant from Suracan Incorporated, that application has been withdrawn at the request of the applicant. However, if you're on wishing to speak on that, you can do that during this public forum. So is there anyone in the public wishing to address the commission? Just state your name first, please, if you are. Anyone wishing to address the commission? Anyone wishing to address the commission? KZ, did we have any calls?
We don't
Did
have
you
any
know?
call-
We don't have anything from the public.
Nope.
Any calls coming in? Okay. That portion of the public forum is now closed. Next item on our agenda is a site plan review for SPR 2929, Voices of Children, expansion of a legal non-conforming office and a parking lot in a B2 family zone property at 515 East Street, parcel number ID 4107-451-046. Is the applicant present?
Yes, we are.
Can you tell us about your site plan, please?
Thank you, commissioners. My name is Connie Holloman, and I have the pleasure of serving as Executive Director for Voices for Children. We are the Child Advocacy Center for Genesee County, and we also provide services in Shiawassee County as well. What that means is any child that's abused, neglected, or human trafficked comes before our Center for Services. At this time, we are only currently able to see child sexual abuse cases, a majority of only those cases, a few neglect cases, and only severe physical abuse cases. In order for us to be able to see the entire gambit of children who have been physically, sexually, human trafficked, or neglected, we need to be able to expand our building because we are currently out of space in our current location. We provided over 600 services to over 600 new kids last year and a total of 1,200 families. We provide therapy services for those families. We coordinate with law enforcement and CPS to provide what's called a forensic interview. So kids in Genesee County and in Flint do not have to go to a police station or go to the CPS office to have their case investigated. We provide advocacy where we go to court with the kids. Any basic needs that the family has, we coordinate those needs with people in the community and agencies in the community. And then we provide support groups for families. We provide prevention education. So we are the only agency providing these direct services to the children in Genesee and in Flint. And so this expansion project will allow us to serve an additional close to 300 to 400 kids and the families of those particular kids. the kids count data just came out, and it showed that Genesee County is third for child abuse and neglect at this time. And so we want to be able to provide all of the kids the same services that the children who are sexually abused are able to get. And so the information that Creekwood Architect will provide will explain all of the things that we are doing at the particular site. And I do want to share that we did looking at other places to move. However, with the current location, we have more than enough land in order to continue to do the expansion, and it is cheaper for us to stay at the current location, as the kids call it, the Big Blue House, which is my virtual background, so that everybody could see. I am a proud Voices for Children employee and will continue to keep that as my background. Currently, even during the pandemic, we are providing emergency forensic interviews. And I can only tell you, like, as a person who sees kids that come in every single day, what's happening to our kids during the pandemic is even more horrific than what we're seeing just at a different time, just what they're going through, the bruises that we're seeing on their body, or what they're having to endure because they're not at school at this current point. So I can continue talking about this forever. So I will pass it on over to Rick and Bruce over at Creekwood Architect.
Okay, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Bruce Calhoun, Creekwood Architecture with Rick Swihart. What we're looking at doing is expanding the existing facility. We're adding 2,892 square feet. That's going to give us a total of 5,158 feet on the first floor. We're expanding the parking lot to 31 cars, and this is on 1.3 acres of land. We're surrounded by commercial uses. You know, the residential district, we have the church that is on two different sides, and we have some houses on the south side that are heavily screened with trees. So I think it's a good use for the rest of the land on this project. We've already been through the ZBA, and we've got permission to expand the non-conforming use. It was a unanimous approval. And we've already relocated the garage from the back of the house to the position shown on the site plan right now. The site will drain into a detention pond located on the north east portion of the site, and a drain line will extend out to the road right away to the existing storm sewer system. We have an easement that was wrote up for that storm line to run through there. It just hasn't been recorded yet because the clerk's office isn't quite open yet. And also we're expanding the asphalt into the church property, and I think you have in your possession a letter from the church stating their approval to do that. It allows us to make the parking spaces in front of the building and the drive meet the legal standards required. Other than that, we'd ask for your approval, and I think it's a good project for you.
Thank you. Questions from the commission to the applicant?
Yes, this is Commissioner Jewell. I want to give kudos. I want to give kudos for the outstanding work that you're doing. Also had an opportunity to review the site plan and the correspondence that submitted. I did have a chance to read the letter from the church, but could you share with me a little bit more of the interactional discussion that you had with them?
Yes, we've worked with Pastor Tom on a regular basis for the work that we're providing at Voices for Children. As a matter of fact, we collaborate regularly for providing food and access to for his the White House that's next door to us. The church owns the house, but we provide parking spots for their coffee shop as well as for their apartment. And so good neighbors. we always have been good neighbors. And so the board of directors wrote us a letter back in December that allowed us to have the storm line that goes on their property. We'll be redoing the entire parking lot over there as well. There are a couple of holes in the parking lot currently that need to be replaced. So it's kind of a win-win for him. He doesn't have to worry about replacing that. But additionally, one of the bigger things is that when the church, when 475 was built, it took the parking lot from the front of the church and put it in the back. And a lot of his members are now elderly. So by us creating this parking lot where our staff and our law enforcement and CPS will be able to park on Sundays and on Tuesdays when they have Bible study in church, they will be able to utilize our parking lot, and it's a lot closer to the front door. So it's one of those things where it just works out for the entire campus over there for us to all collaboratively work together.
Yeah, again, this is Commissioner Jewell. Thank you ever so much. I appreciate the correspondence from Riverside. You had made mention that their board had submitted to you a letter of agreement or something to that effect, or did I misinterpret that?
No, that is correct. They did.
Okay, is there a letter of agreement or a memorandum of understanding between the Big Blue House, if I'm allowed to use that, and Rivers regarding this particular arrangement?
We do have the letter from them, and if you want me to share it, I can pull it up quickly.
Well,
Are you,
no,
Chairman Wesley, Commissioner Jewell, are you referring to the letter of December 11, 2019?
Yes.
No, I'm looking at that letter, okay, of December that was in our packet. And I'm just asking if there was a memorandum of agreement between between the church and Voices of Children for this effort that's stated.
We haven't done an MOU because we haven't gone all the way through getting all of the approvals necessary. But once we are able to do that, we will execute an MOU. I mean, the church, we have operated collectively together in the sense of removing trees,
Correct.
the fence and everything like that. So we will be entering into an MOU.
And also,
Would you be,
if you note, there's a sidewalk that's extending to the church property and a gate being provided
correct.
so that they can utilize the parking on Sundays.
Right. All I would like to offer, I don't have a difficulty with the efforts that you're doing. In fact, I'm extremely supportive of it. I just want to make sure that we have all of our bases covered. And I'd like to encourage you to make a notation that when you do establish that memorandum of understanding, if you could then submit that to the staff with also, again, the copy of December 11th.
Okay, we'll do.
Is that something that can be done just so we can have that on file?
So I will commit to doing it. I just want to make sure that the church is okay with that. The letter that they provided is the letter that, we wanted an MOU, but because we hadn't gone through the site plans, that the letter is what the church gave to us. So I can commit to that on the Voices for Children side, but I don't want to have it written in documentation without conferring with the church because I don't think it's fair to them.
And I understand that. And so all I'm asking for is, yes, they have this letter stating that they're, I'm reading, grant you permission, et cetera, et cetera. It only makes sense as two different organizations to have some sort of letter of agreement or MOU, however you design that.
Okay, we'll do, definitely.
Okay. Thank you ever so much. Chairman Wesley, those were my main concerns.
Okay. Any other questions from the commissioners to the applicant?
Chairman,
Yes,
Chairman Wesley, I have a question for the applicant.
Okay.
Thank you for your presentation. I was part of the conversation with the ZBA a couple of weeks ago. I do have a question, especially regarding the neighbors to the east. It's noted as residential. Just what is, are there barriers? Is it a fence line, or tree line, especially to the east, but if you could kind of go over the neighbors to each side and kind of what barriers are around the property.
The neighbor, okay, Bruce, to the east, is that the yellow house?
Actually, to the east is the church parking lot.
Is the what? The church, okay. No, to the east, there is it's a white building where the church owns part of the property. They have a coffee shop in the bottom level, and then they have temporary housing for people in their congregation that like they switch out probably every maybe 2 to 6 months. Like we see different residents in there. And so we all share one parking lot currently, which is not the easiest, especially when the coffee house is open. And then on the west side, I'm assuming, now you guys are getting a little bit, like the west and the east is a little much to me, but on the other side is a yellow house that is currently the Flint Cultural Corporation, which we work in tandem with already. They provide our snow removal and our lawn care. We have regular neighborhood meeting not neighborhood meeting, but like lunch gatherings with everybody there. And then there is a fence right behind the house to the west where there are people who are residents that live there, but it is a full screen privacy fence that is there with trees, and it abuts to their backyard. And then the rest of it is vacant land. And then in the backside, I guess to the south, maybe, I'm really struggling here at this point,
okay.
But then the rest of it is church parking lot property.
So the only fence line is the large privacy fence. The rest is just screening of trees or open space?
Yeah, there's it's open space to the church and to the parking lot, but there's a chain link fence that we're gonna repair and trees.
All right, thank you.
And where there is that one neighbor, there is the full privacy with a ton of trees over there.
All right, are there any other questions from the commission to the applicant?
Yes,
Mr. Chair, I have some questions.
Go ahead, Ms. Sorensen.
Commissioner Sorensen. So once this addition is complete, the main entry is going to be on the north side of the building. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. What is going to happen on the east side of the building? I see there's an entrance there. That entrance is going to be used for what?
The entrance will still be there. So we provide counseling and we provide forensic interviews. So in the current, where the current door is, that is where all of our forensic interviews will go in. And then the new door will be where our therapy, the returning clients will go to.
On the east, on the north side of the building.
Bruce, I'm going to yield to
Yes,
you.
that's the north side of the building, yeah.
There you go.
Okay. And what about the entrance on the east side of the building?
That's where our forensic interview, our new clients will go in.
That's not your existing. That is the new entrance on the end of the new addition.
I apologize then, flip flop it. New clients will go into the existing door, and then returning clients for counseling, for court preparation, for support group will go into the new door.
The new door being
The other two doors to the east are just for exiting.
just for exiting?
Yes.
Okay. The only problem I have is, and I'm sure you've met all the criteria for parking spots per square footage and all that, is the fact that that parking on the north side of the new addition is there is no sidewalk into the building in front of the cars that park. So consequently, I mean, I went to the site twice over the weekend. So consequently, these children are going to be directed to the rear of the car to walk down the parking lot along the rear of the cars in which to get to the entrance of the building.
I currently are right now, the way that, even though there's that parking, if you went there this weekend, even though there is the sidewalk, only handicap cars park right at that particular area. And so all of the rest of the cars, because there is no parking, it's the same thing for kids to get into the building currently. No one parks on that, on the street. They all use the parking lot that we created.
Okay, okay, I realize that, but we're doing this multi-million-dollar add-on, and I just wish that there was something that we could do to make it safer. Because of the fact that the residence / coffee shop business across the parking lots, not across the street, it's across the parking lot, may not be sympathetic to the type of clientele that you serve. And consequently, I just think it's a little unsafe. You know, I don't like those environments where you park and you are forced to walk to the back of your car in order to get in the building is my only concern. But I mean, the plans look great. You know, I'm familiar with the work that you do, and I'm quite impressed. And I know that it's a needed service. So, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission to the applicant?
Yes, this is Commissioner Ryan. I have a question concerning the windows on the new addition. I looked at the drawings, didn't see size or anything. Maybe I overlooked it. Can you explain that, please?
They're all egress sized windows that egress from a residence.
Could you, to the applicant, could you say that again, please? I know it kind of broke up on my end.
They're egress windows, and they are 3046, 3 foot by 4 foot 6 to pretty much match the existing. On your preliminary plan, you probably just didn't have all the notes that are pertinent to the construction documents.
So if I understand you right, they're not on the drawing, correct?
On the preliminary floor plans that you have, it probably doesn't state the sizes of the windows because it's not a requirement of site plan review, but they are on the construction documents. And all of them are 3 foot by 4 foot 6 double hung windows. And they're gonna have the true division lights to match the existing windows in the existing house or building.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions from the commission to the applicant?
And I guess I have not so much a question, but just an observation. I had the opportunity to actually walk through the existing facility a few months ago, and every inch of the current facility is completely utilized. I mean, people are literally making offices out of closets. And so certainly I can understand the importance of the work and applaud the applicant for moving forward to serve the needs of the kids in our community.
Okay. Any other questions from commission to the applicant? I would just like, just for the record, that the letters received may be made part of the record. We have some from Genesee County Sheriff Swanson. We have the letters from Genesee County Association of Chief Police, Ron Wyatt, and David Layden, our prosecutor, in support of, and of course, the Riverside Tabernacle Assembly of God Church in support of who they are, a bus really, too. And we have from the Flint Cultural Center, a letter of support. And from our Congressman Dale Kildee, a letter of support for the work that they're doing at that facility. Those letters will be made part of the record. What is the desire, if we hear no other questions, what is the desire of the commission?
Chairman Wesley?
Yes.
Mr. Jordan, I would move approval of SPR 20-929 Voices for Children, expansion of a legal non-conforming office and parking in a B2 family zone property located at 515 East Street, parcel number 4107451046. And having noted the applicant's intention to furnish us with a copy of the MOU with Riverside at the point that that becomes available.
Commissioner Campbell, a second.
It's been moved and properly supported by Commissioner Campbell, motion by Commissioner Jordan. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll.
Commissioner Ryan,
Yes.
Commissioner Campbell,
Yes.
Commissioner Blauer,
Yes.
Commissioner Wesley, sorry, Commissioner Jewell,
Yes.
Commissioner Hawkins, Commissioner Sorensen,
Yay, we got him.
She was on mute. 1 second.
Commissioner Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Wesley.
Yes. To the applicant, your site plan has been approved, and they will get you the stamped documents, I'm sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Continue the good work. Next item on our agenda is a case review, status of a holistic vibe application withdrawal. And we asked for a legal opinion back on our meeting.
21st.
Our meeting on April 15th, was it?
Correct.
Is Kelly on the line with us? Kelly Thompson, are you there?
Yes, I'm sorry, Mrs. Fair. Can you hear me?
Okay, we can hear you now. We asked for some directions and legal opinion back on the 15th regarding the status of a holistic vibe application to withdraw. And this was their second time withdrawing from consideration for a public hearing. What was your?
So just to clarify, my understanding of the sequence of events was that there was one postponement, and then after that, the applicant withdrew the application. So we've got one postponement and then one withdrawn application. Is that accurate?
Yes, I think it is.
Like at this stage, that we have no pending applications for holistic vibes.
Right.
So with that, under the Planning Commission bylaws, and I'm specifically looking at Article 3, Section 5, and I have it on my screen. I could actually share my screen if the commission would like to see it as I'm explaining it. So under the bylaws, and I'm sorry, my computer died in the middle of our meeting, so I had it pulled up. Here it is. And there's a provision, sorry, I'm just getting to the right section here. So Section 5 says, applicant requests to postpone I've never shared my screen before, so this is new. Okay, can everyone see this, Section 5 right here?
Not yet.
No, all I see is Kelly Thompson has started screen sharing.
Right.
There we go.
There it is.
Okay, so Section 5, the applicant requests to postpone. Upon the applicant's timely request for the postponement of a public hearing, The administrator shall grant the request, provided, however, the applicant shall be assessed the cost of any additional public notifications. Only one postponement of a public hearing is allowed at the request of the applicant. So based on this provision in your bylaws, Holistic Vibes was able to postpone their application the first time, which they did. And then there's nothing in the bylaws that prohibits an applicant from withdrawing. So there are additional costs that the applicant will incur if they withdraw. But there's no prejudice to the applicant for withdrawing and then reapplying at a later date. Now, that being said, the commission can still consider all the public comments that were previously heard in the meetings where the application was supposed to be heard. And that goes to preserving the public's right to be heard on each application. So under these bylaws, Holistic Vibes is free to reapply, and hopefully they don't have to withdraw again, but that's what they would have to do. They wouldn't be allowed to postpone their application again. And there's no effect as far as the review, the commission's review of the application. Whatever happened with postponing or withdrawing, that cannot bear on the commission's review of the application itself.
Okay, this is Chairman Wesley. Kelly, so they withdrew. Is there a time period by which they withdrew? Can they come back before us like in 6 months, or is there a time period that have to pass before they can bring that back before the commission?
Not under the bylaws. There's not a timing requirement or a time that must lapse before they can reapply. They just have to go through the whole application process from the beginning. So that would include a new application fee, bringing us all the materials for the application, and the planning staff review and preparation for the application to go for a hearing.
So what action do we have to take tonight on their request? Well, their request to withdraw. I mean, they can withdraw at any time, and then not have requesting a postponement. They can just withdraw and at a later date bring it back before this commission. Is that correct?
Correct. So currently there is no application for Holistic Vibes pending before this commission. And if and when they decide to reapply, then like I said, it would start from the beginning and they would not be able to postpone the application again.
Okay.
But there is also, Kelly, can I ask a question, Chairman Wesley?
Yes, go ahead.
Is there an opportunity, maybe this is the time you just elected officers, you're fully staffed now, maybe there's an opportunity to look at the bylaws generally as a group and determine if that is something that you want to address in the bylaws. And I'm not proposing for or against, I'm just thinking about whether this presents an opportunity to discuss that.
As far as whether or not we want to add something to the bylaws regarding withdrawal?
Regarding withdrawal or if there's any other, there have been a lot, and maybe it's not the time right now, but there have been, lots of changes, and this has been a learning process for marijuana. There may be some other things that you want to look at, and because you are really almost fully staffed right now, it might be a good time to think about that. And I'm just offering this as, one of the things that you might discuss. There might be others too, but because it's not addressed in the bylaws at all, and it is something that you're encountering, maybe it's something you want to think about.
This is Commissioner Jewell. I think the discussion about bylaws is an excellent one. I think it'd be appropriate for us to take a look at a bylaw review, to take a look at items that need to be reaffirmed or to be changed or to be added, not necessarily just this particular item, but for others. So that may be something that the chair would like to take a look at, as well as to provide some insight on some specific things that a bylaws committee might want to take a look at, which is different than this particular topic we're talking about now.
Okay.
But this is Commissioner Jewell. I do have a review question for Kelly. Kelly, are you there? Okay, Kelly, this is Commissioner Jewell. It's my understanding, as you stated, the applicant has withdrawn their application. And as such, if they wish to apply, they have to reapply and start one. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. At which point, that would then be a new application.
Correct. And my interpretation of the bylaws would be it's a new application up to or to the extent that it's been resubmitted. However, the previous postponement, you know, if it's the same facility and they're requesting the same thing, then I think a prior postponement would remain on the new application. So they can't get one postponement and then later withdraw and then reapply and then postpone again.
I understand that. So the focus, Kelly, would be on the process of reapplication.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And to take that one step further, I think that there's a deterrent effect. You know, an applicant would be deterred from applying and withdrawing and applying again because they're incurring the application fees all over again. So the reapplying, I think, works as a deterrent to an applicant who wants to apply and withdraw and apply and withdraw.
Kelly, Bob Wesley again, Chairman. Would they lose their grandfather status?
If they withdrew an application?
If they withdrew an application and it's a new application now, would they lose grandfather status at that point?
If they would, based on a status change to the property in the interim, the withdrawal itself wouldn't have an impact on the grandfathering. But if other circumstances change that would affect the grandfathered status, then you know, over time that could happen. But withdrawing itself would not affect their grandfathered status.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I was just wondering what type of things would affect their grandfather status, because, you know, they got the medical marijuana provisioning, they got that there on a grandfather status. And what they're asking for now, or what they had asked for, could only go into anything that's no zoning less than a D6 or an E or whatever, which that property they don't have. That property was zoned D1 or D2, I think, over there.
Okay.
And so, you know, they're requesting for recreational and which would not fit in that particular, with the zoning, old or new zoning, proposed zoning at this time. So that would answer my question.
if they previously were granted a marijuana provisioning center license or SRU, then the recreational is a like use that would qualify at that particular location under the grandfathered status.
Recreational would not.
The recreational retail. That
It would not.
could be piggybacked on top of the marijuana provisioning.
They can. I don't think. I'll have to think about that one. But go ahead. Are there any other questions that the commission have for?
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Campbell. Could she repeat the last part? Is she saying that the recreational would be able to go in there with the provisional? Is that was that the statement made?
Right. So for medical provisioning or recreational retail, those can be done at the same location.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
Now, it still has to come before the commission for approval for recreational retail, but it can be piggybacked to a grandfathered marijuana medical provisioning center.
Okay. It's just the other two that cannot be piggyback.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the questions. And I would also offer to the commission, when it comes to reviewing the bylaws, I can do some research and maybe reach out to some other communities and try and find some bylaws that have been updated more recently than ours to give the commission something to compare it to, and maybe get some ideas for provisions that we want to add.
Solid, excellent idea.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
I will do that.
Thank you.
Any other? What is the desire of the commission? That I don't think there's anything that the commission has to do on the case review of Society of Holistic Vibes application to withdraw their application at this time. So
this is Commissioner Jewell. It's my understanding that we put it under case review to review the status of the situation, information, and I think we have that at this time. It's my understanding that it's up to the applicant to decide what future direction they want to move into.
Right. Is there any other discussion concerning SPR 20-929? No, I'm sorry. Move on down, Bob. That the case review of the status of a holistic vibe. Are there any other concerns or questions at this time? Okay. Hearing none, we'll go to the public hearing. I'd like to say that, yes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Have two other items under
I'm sorry.
Under case review. We have the status of SPR
20-2930 landscaping plan.
Correct.
Susanna, did we receive anything?
We have not, but we do have communication from the applicant from North Star Development. They are working on multiple documents related to their submission of their application to MSHDA. And our understanding from them is that we will have the updated landscaping plan, as well as some of the other comments that I know that was one thing, and you saw the plan review, but some of the other comments that needed to be addressed. They will have everything to us by June 15th. So we will be looking for that then, and I will be bringing it back to you. I'm sorry, we'll be asking the chair for either your participation or your designee's participation to review it with staff.
Okay.
Thank you ever so much, Suzanne.
You're welcome.
All right. Okay, moving on to the public hearing. The 4 applications for Sercan Incorporated have been withdrawn at the request of the applicant. We also received a letter that we made part of the record from Ronald DeCenso, something like that. It says, on behalf of Springfield Holding LLC, object to objection to the approval of the following special regulated use permit, which are the subject of the public hearing. That letter will be made part of the record, where he cites all four requests. So this matter has been withdrawn from our agenda at this time.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
This is Commissioner Jewell. Based on our just recent conversation, since this entity has withdrawn those 4 requests, my understanding of withdrawal then means that if they want to come back, again, they have to reapply and go through the same process. Is that correct?
That's my understanding. Is that correct, Ms. Townsend?
Yes, Commissioners, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make...
Mr. Chair?
Chairman Wesley, this is Bill Vandercook.
Yeah, Bill.
I'd like to ask Kelly to look at the bylaws again, and the terminology postponement. They would have one postponement. They withdrew, and so it's like a legal term that she would know more about. But the postponement, they wouldn't have to reapply, but a withdrawal, they would have to.
Correct. If they just postpone, then presumably we're setting it for a date certain or another hearing date sometime in the future. But if they withdraw, then, and we go based on what the applicant says. If they say withdraw, then they're withdrawing. But if they say we'd like to postpone or reschedule, something along those lines, then they can do that once. But withdraw means they've completely withdrawn.
So Bill, is this correct? They are withdrawing the applications at this time. Is that correct?
This is Suzanne. So
Suzanne.
they actually, we actually asked that question, and that was the word that they used, but I think that they used it in a different context because they were talking about withdrawing the application for tonight, but I know that they have every intention of bringing it back. So they actually did use the word withdraw, but it really, I guess, in the context of what they're proposing to do, they are looking to bring this application back to the commission. The reason it was withdrawn, the application for tonight's meeting, is because there were documents that were missing from the application that we could not get together in time to deliver complete comprehensive packets to the Planning Commission by Friday. So we gave them a deadline when we needed to have all the documents. They did not meet that deadline, and so they withdrew their application. But I think they're using it in the context of withdrawing their application for tonight's meeting with an intention of bringing it back to the next possible meeting, which the earliest agenda we could get it on would be June 9th. I guess that's a question for Kelly, because they technically did use the word withdraw, but they're not withdrawing their application with the intention of, not bringing it before the Planning Commission.
This is Commissioner Jewell. Bob, you just read a letter, and I think in the letter it said, did it say withdrawal?
public statement, public hearing on May 12th regarding special regulated use permit. It does not say withdrawal on here. It says based on the failure of the city to recognize Springfield Holdings prior use approval and application for the provisioning center at 2501 South Dort Highway as still valid.
Yeah, and if I could, commissioners, I think that letter references an application that the author of that letter had previously brought before the commission. That's just based on my reading of that letter. And that letter is not from the applicant. So
yeah,
that whatever's in that letter would not control the status of this this current application for Secure Can. And to your question, Suzanne, I think because we're in this kind of state of unknown with withdraw versus postpone, the most prudent course going forward would be to ask the applicant specifically or warn them, we can treat this as a postponement. If you would like, you only get one of those, or we could treat it as a withdrawn application and start fresh. And just in practice, for Holistic Vibes, because they had expressly postponed once and then withdrew the second time, they weren't allowed another postponement anyway. So
Right.
I just think going forward, as long as we clarify for the applicant, if they're questioning whether or not to go forward with a particular hearing, then we should clarify for them, we can treat it as a postponement if you'd like, but you only get one. So use it now or withdraw and reapply later. So just being transparent and upfront with them in the beginning, I think would be helpful to everyone.
Yeah, I think we can get clarification on that. I know for a fact because they ended up actually delivering the documents via email after the deadline. And so I know that they intend to try and get it on and requested, to see if there was anything we could do to allow them to get on tonight's agenda. So I am sure that they would prefer, and I think you're right, Kelly, it's just a clarification that we need to have with them, and then make sure that for the record, that we're using the proper terminology regardless. My point, and I shared this with Chairman Wesley and Vice Chair Jordan, my point was just to be clear that this was at their request, whether it was a postponement or a withdrawal. This was at their request. So I think we just need additional clarification for the record as to whether it's a postponement or a withdrawal. And I have a pretty good idea of what that will be. But we can go back to the applicant and ask that question and just make sure that it's clear for the record.
Okay. And that's an excellent point you raised, Suzanne. The bylaw says specifically one is permissible at the applicant's request.
Yeah.
So if the commissioners see a particular packet and they think there are some issues with it or something missing, then the commission can ask that it be postponed, and the applicant would have to agree to that. But the commission has the authority to postpone an application if they think it's necessary. And that's not just once. The commission has the authority to do that. I wouldn't suggest multiple times, but you're not limited to one, whether it be from the applicant or the commission.
This is Commissioner Jewell. We have had experiences in the past where applicants have presented information to us that was not complete, and we made the decision as the commission to postpone that particular public hearing. So we have had that experience in the past.
But we gave them a date for certain.
Right, and we
gave them a date for certain when they could bring that back before us too.
And that's correct, that a certain date and time frame was established. And I think in one set of circumstances, the applicant did not fulfill that requirement.
Right.
So I would just, go ahead, Kelly.
When a question like that comes up, that discussion is taking place with the applicant in a public hearing, like during a meeting, correct?
Right. Correct.
And then you're just tabling that application for the time being, requesting something specific that they bring back. So I would treat that different. I mean, you could use the terminology postpone, but that's after a part of the hearing has already taken place. So, you can do that, at the will of the commission. That doesn't trigger the bylaws that we're talking about here.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Commissioner Campbell, are the applicants aware that PC 2368 and 373 cannot go into the same property? Are they aware that they really can't be considered at 2502? Are they aware of that?
I don't know if they are or not.
I mean, because Ms. Thompson said that that 371 and 372 can be in the same location, but 368 and 373, they can't, those two cannot go with the other two. So would it matter even with them, because they're not even in the right district?
And Commissioner Campbell, I may be able to answer that question for you.
Okay.
I haven't reviewed the specific materials for Secure Can, but if the facility is it has I believe a certain square footage, or if they're able to partition it in a certain way, there are circumstances where those license types might be grouped at a particular parcel, but there are just more requirements that they have to meet in order to house all of those license types in the same facility. But like I said, I haven't seen the specific materials for Secure Can, but when we were talking about grandfathering, that those two, the medical provisioning and recreational retail, those can go together just for review purposes, because it's mostly the same materials. So it's not entirely prohibited that they, all those license types be grouped together in one location, but it's just a different review process and more requirements.
Okay.
Chairman Wesley, I do have a question about postponement.
Okay.
If an applicant postpone, kind of per our conversations in the past, do they have to give a definite date to our next meeting kind of situation, or is it kind of open-ended? I know we are very specific when we postpone, that we give a specific date or our next regular scheduled meeting. Is that true for when the applicant postpones? Do we have an answer to that?
I don't know if they have well, I think if we're in a meeting and they postpone at the meeting, then we give a date, or we postpone and we give a date certain. Now, if they postpone, I don't know if they have to give a date certain as to when they bring it back before us again. I think when they give an agenda.
So if an applicant was to postpone, it could be 6 months down the road before they.
No, because the applicants, remember, these are ordered applications. And so that's part of the reason that they only get one postponement, because they're ordered. So they have a specific order that the applications are being reviewed in. And so our understanding and the way we've looked at this in the past is that they're at a certain number, and so they actually have to go. So it kind of pushes everybody else back, because at some point they are prior, their application has to be reviewed by before all of the others that are after them. So that is why they were trying to get all the information to us, and that is that potentially impacts the May 26th meeting, which we didn't have the information in time for them to get on that meeting, and that's why we were trying to get it on the next possible meeting, which would be June 9th, but we have to do it in the order that the applications came in.
Okay, I was just making sure that it wasn't a tool to kind of skip around in the order. So it would be by default the next scheduled meeting per staff.
I mean, that's how we've been interpreting it, and that is the discussion we had before. I would defer to Kelly on this too, but that is why we're trying to get them on, because it impacts everybody else after them.
And I think this is a good thing to consider in adding to the bylaws. That's something that can be added in there. If an applicant desires to postpone, then it could only be postponed until, the next meeting or 2 meetings from now. You can put that in your bylaws so that it's very clear.
And the reason that it could not, that we couldn't get it on the May 26th agenda, even if we had all the information, is the way that the notices are required to happen right now because of the pandemic, and getting things to the paper and having the legal notices 15 days ahead of time. We actually have, by the time they requested to postpone, which was obviously well in advance of this meeting, but the notices had already been sent to the Flint Journal to get in the paper for Sunday and had already been published. So we couldn't change that. So that has an impact now that it didn't necessarily have before. We had a little bit more flexibility in our notices. So we don't have that flexibility now. So we were already behind the date of getting it on the next meeting. So we actually couldn't get it on until the meeting, 2 meetings from now.
Okay.
And one last related to what we're discussing, this provision that we're discussing, Article 3, Section 5 of the bylaws, it says upon a timely request to postpone. So in my notes, I underlined timely because I think that's a question that the commission, on a case-by-case basis or application-by-application basis, what is timely? And I think if public notices have already gone out, then that's one factor to indicate that the request to postpone was not submitted in a timely manner. But again, I think on a case-by-case basis, these are the circumstances that the commission and planning staff should consider if they receive a request to postpone an application, and also something that could be baked into the bylaws.
I think that's a really good point for the bylaws. I would just add to that this request to postpone / withdraw was made last Tuesday, I think, or I'm sorry, Thursday. So the meeting is tonight. Just in comparison, I think it's important to, kind of reiterate Kelly's point about a case-by-case basis, because in comparison, Holistic Vibes requested their application be postponed the day of the meeting. So there are differences between, there's circumstantial differences between situations, and so they do need to be part of the discussion. But I think Kelly's point is really valid, that maybe a definition of timely, gets included in the bylaws.
All right. Very good. Is there any other discussion on
Hello?
public? Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Ryan. What are you saying?
This is Commissioner Ryan. I'm just wondering, should it be a policy that once a person be told upon 2 withdrawals that you have to start all over again?
Well, did we set, I don't think we set a number as a withdrawal. I think when you withdraw, you start all over again. Is that correct, Kelly? If they withdraw one time, they have to start from the beginning. again.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
They can
All right.
postpone once and they don't have to start over. They
Right.
can request one postponement. But then after that, if they request a postponement or withdraw, then either way, they have to withdraw and start over again.
Okay.
Or once they're informed that if you want to postpone now, it's going to be deemed a withdrawal, they might decide to go forward with the scheduled public hearing.
Okay.
But they only get to push it back once.
All right. Is there anything else on the public hearing for Suracan? All right, that's good. Suzanne, you will get clarification on they want a postponement or withdrawal, and we think it's going to be a postponement. Is that correct?
I do, but I will get clarification for that, for the commission and for the record.
Okay. Very well. Can we move on to reports? Kelly, you back up again for the status of the permanent marijuana ordinance.
Yes, and I think the standing position for the permanent marijuana ordinance is that, and Suzanne, you could chime in here if you will, but we are trying to move forward with the zoning ordinance before the permanent marijuana ordinance.
Actually, the zoning ordinance that will come after the permanent marijuana ordinance. Okay. So we are just waiting for the permanent marijuana ordinance to be adopted by council. They're in the midst of their 60-day extension, and at this point, the last two council meetings, it has not come up. I'm anticipating there's some discussion to occur relatively soon because they're very aware of the deadline of the or the expiration of the ordinance. So, and that is something I want to talk to Kelly a little bit more about because there is some interest in some modifications to the permanent ordinance, and we need to have a discussion about that. Most of you are probably familiar with that, given that some of those requests have come from people who have participated in this process and against some of the other applicants, some for and some against. But there are some suggestions, and there was a discussion at the council meeting when they voted to postpone the ordinance that they were going to have a conversation with the law office, and so there is an opening for some modifications. But we do have some language that has been shared with us, and I wanted to talk to Kelly about it first, but at some point I think that it would be fair to share it with you as well. And the proposal is to strengthen the ability if someone gets denied for a recreational adult use after as part of their medical license. The question is, how long is that denied for? Can they then come back to the commission? I mean, even if they're grandfathered in. And so you're very familiar, I think, with what the concerns of the residents are. And so language has been submitted to us, and Kelly and I are scheduling some time to discuss that. And then there probably will be some conversations with council at some level so that there can be decisions made on whether this is something that council is interested in putting in the ordinance. It's really out of our hands, but it is something that has been provided to us. And we are scheduled to talk about that soon.
Okay. Chairman Wesley, Commissioner Jewell here. Could the extension of the emergency ordinance for marijuana, do we have a date on that expiration date?
I can probably get that in just a minute here, unless Suzanne, you have it.
I cannot remember. I want to say it's the end of June, but I really don't know the exact date, so I'm sorry.
Okay. When we do the minutes, can we just include that within the minutes?
Sure.
And that would be the expiration date of the
Emergency, right. The emergency medical marijuana ordinance.
Yeah, well, I'll make sure that we get that to you and include it in the minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Capital improvement plan, Suzanne?
Let me just say back to the zoning ordinance. So yeah, we're still on track for that. So once the permanent ordinance is adopted, then we will be bringing the zoning ordinance too. So I just wanted to reiterate that. The capital improvement plan, I don't have an update for you. I know that Eric Scorsoni has been working on the community budget hearings, and I am still trying to get the section. There have been revisions to the capital improvement plan due to a lot of budget adjustments that have been required to make. So, however you phrase that. So I don't have anything for you yet, but I'm hoping to get something soon. I did get some documents last night, and as soon as I get that, I will provide that to you via email, and then I should have them before the next meeting, and we can discuss it at the next meeting.
Okay. Next meeting. All right. Commissioner Blower, review of the ZBA of 421.
Yes, ZBA met on 421 via Zoom, like we are doing. As referenced earlier, we spoke about we had the Voices for Children variance that was unanimously approved before this meeting. But specifically, I just wanted to share that the 4D MAR PC 2358, I believe is the case number, went before ZBA as kind of an appeal of our decision for a locational variance. As you recall, they were seeking to be the fifth adult use on Dory. And they were seeking, and their decision at ZBA voted 6-1 to deny. And they kind of reiterated and supported kind of our decisions and the choices we made for denial. So I just wanted to pass along that had come before ZBA, and it was 6-1 to deny and to uphold our decision.
Okay. Bill, did you get all of Commissioner Blower's comments?
Yes, I did, Commissioner Wesley.
Okay, because she was breaking up sort of on my end.
Mine also.
Okay.
Mine too.
Did you need me to repeat that?
No, if it's going to be in the minutes next time, that's fine.
Yeah, it could be in the minutes, I think. Bill said he got it all. So that's what I was thinking.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Okay. We're going to resolutions. Any resolutions? Bill or Suzanne, any resolutions?
Commissioner Wesley, this is Bill.
Yes.
I don't know of any resolutions.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any old business? Here none. New business marijuana relicensing policy. Was that you, Suzanne?
That was something that we talked about. We talked about the last meeting, and then we need to have, and I think it came up, there were questions about it, but I think it's more of an internal discussion that we just need to have, and Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's some conversations that we have to have internally just to make sure, I'm trying to remember how this was on the Planning Commission agenda. We have to have some discussions about the process and the routing and the system in order to get licenses approved. But I think this was actually something that came up in our conversation, Chairman Wesley and Vice Chair.
Yeah.
Um,
I think so too.
yeah, so this was something that I think it's two parts. There is a conversation that we need to have internally at the city, but there was also a discussion that you as the planning commissioners wanted to have too.
Elizabeth, do you remember that conversation? I think that came up on our discussion Friday.
Yes, it did. And the genesis of it, I think, is that we're approaching the time when some of the first marijuana applicants are going to be coming up on their 1-year relicensing period. And so staff had raised a question to me about, what were the expectations in terms of following up on those that went through the rubric process. So for example, some people got scored higher because they were planning on paying a living wage, or they had committed to hiring a certain number of Flint residents, or making some sort of charitable gift towards local nonprofits or things like that. And so we had made it really clear in our deliberations that because folks had gotten earlier in the queue based on the promise of these benefits, that at the time of relicensing, they were going to be required to demonstrate what had they actually performed relative to what they said they were going to do for those various factors. And so it's more so trying to be a little proactive in terms of, for staff, what is that process? And not that we as Planning Commission is going to be designating that, but that I think my recollection of our conversations at the time was that each applicant would have to report back as part of the relicensing process to staff on what they had achieved, and that staff, relicenses for the cases where they've fulfilled their obligations. And I think the part that I wanted to just bring for the commission was to make sure that we're all of one accord, that we're not rehearing these cases. We're not being asked to weigh in on every relicensing, this is largely a staff function, but if there's cases where maybe they've met some of the requirements, but not all, and they would like our input on it, that they could always feel free to bring something forward as a case review, but that, that those that had met their obligations, we probably wouldn't get more than just an update.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That is exactly the conversation we had. And so I appreciate that. That's for the commissioners' discussion. And then for our discussion, I just wanted to bring this up to Kelly. So we are talking about putting together kind of a routing sheet and process. And so this is something that we discussed on Friday with you, Chairman Wesley, and you, Elizabeth, was making sure that those factors, and that's something we'll have to, figure out, that those factors get included in that annual relicensing process. So if they had to, and that was something we're going to have to look through files, look through the actual, review forms or the recommendations from the Planning Commission, and we're starting to do that, and then make sure that that gets reflected in the annual relicensing process. So I just wanted to bring that up just because we have, so I don't lose that again, that we need to make sure that we do that in the routing sheet / process. So.
Okay.
Chairman Wesley, this is Commissioner Jewell. Following up, Suzanne, the conversation that you just presented, I do know that when we reviewed the marijuana ordinance, there was a number of sections regarding exemptions in regards to plans that were going to be put together, and there was discussions regarding how I'll use the term monitor and review that. Mm-hmm. So I think that fits right into the points that you were making.
Yes, thank you.
Yep. Okay. Is there anything else for new business?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
This is Commissioner Campbell. I would like to personally thank the commission for the chocolates that I received on behalf of my husband. It gave me something to do and added more pounds, which is not something I needed. But thank you very much. I did share. I did not eat them all by myself. So thank you very much.
Great. You're more than welcome.
Commissioner Wesley, Chair Wesley.
Yes.
I know we've been meeting remotely, but again, like to say special thanks and welcome to Commissioner Sorensen. Welcome aboard, Lynn.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate that.
And also for April Cook Hawkins as we move forward. And also congratulations to our leadership team, Bob, Elizabeth, and Carol Ann. We have strong faith in you.
Yes,
Very
appreciate
much
it.
so.
And we appreciate that.
Yeah.
Very much so.
We appreciate that. Appreciate it. Anything else? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Hey, thanks everyone for joining us on the new wave now, the new normal.
Thank
For
you.
I
now.
like the new normal.
The new normal is okay,
Yeah,
New normal,
I like the
okay.
new normal.
but I like the personal. I like to be
Right.
there too. I
Right.
like that.
But after listening to the news all the time, I think this is going to probably be more normal than what it used to be, unfortunately.
Yeah, I do too. So okay,
I
everyone.
think. Okay.
All right,
Good night.
everyone. Take
Night.
care.
Thank
Night.
you,
you.
Ann, Bill,
Right.
again.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
I'm muted.